you're the first group that have left the Teams meeting currently. As I said when we were all on the screen, my aim over these days of training is that you have some time where you're on the screen and some time when you're off the screen. A lot of the evidence coming forward suggests that it's really tiring to be looking at the screen all the time. And whilst I know you're looking at the screen now while you watch this very short clip, you'll then be writing in your booklets and then it'll be time for break. So I'm really going to be quite measured over these 2 days in aiming to have on-screen and off-screen time. So in this section, while you're off the screen, I'd like you to really think about ambivalence. So you've got your booklets. If you want to turn to page 5 in the booklet, and you'll see that it says here about clip 1, examples for training reflection. If I just give you a little bit of introduction to this, motivational interviewing is an approach that focuses on ambivalence, and ambivalence is just a posh word for having mixed feelings about something. So you like it, you don't like it. Or you might have ambivalence about changing something. So you kind of want to change something and you kind of don't. And the best way to really kind of be clear on ambivalence, I think, is to just think about a few examples. So we could think about some examples that have been quite common during this time of the pandemic. Some people have felt that they really want to go out and spend time with other people, but at the same time they're not quite sure what's safe, or they're a little bit nervous about that. Some people have said they just want to stay indoors and they don't want to go anywhere, and then they've found that they've kind of got a bit stir crazy, so they're not sure if staying in is the right thing for them. So you hear the ambivalence around staying in and you hear the ambivalence about going out. I've also worked with some clients recently who have said to me that they really want to have a routine. So they want to get up in the morning, have a shower, have breakfast, brush their teeth, get dressed, and have a function for the day, almost like a structure. And then they don't do that, and they don't get round to doing it, and they say, I just can't be asked. So in part they want to, and in other parts they don't. Similarly, I've spoken to some people who've said that they're not doing enough activity. So during the time where they've been in the house, they've thought about maybe doing Joe Wicks, or maybe doing some going up and down the stairs, or doing some steps around their garden or around their house. And then they kind of think, well, does it really matter? It won't last that long. I can do exercise in the future. So ambivalence is where you're wanting to do something and not wanting to do it at the same time. Or it might be where you're doing something and you kind of like it and you kind of don't. And I think it would be really useful for this training course if you could really think about this on a personal level and in a kind of working example as well. So in your booklets on page 5 there are 2 sections. The top one is around looking at your working example, and the bottom one is something personal. So if we start with the work one, it might be that you manage staff, it might be that you work with service users. I'd like you to think of somebody, and I don't want you to identify them, so you don't need to write their names down, but I'd like you to think of someone you've worked with who's had ambivalence about something. And the first few lines are for you to write down what the issue was. So for example, you might be managing a member of staff and they are regularly turning up late for work, and they're just not improving that. They're not getting their act together. You've spoken to them about it a few times and they're still not getting into work on time. So the current situation or issue would be lack of punctuality with a staff member. Underneath that, there's some lines for you to write down what the ambivalence is. So can you think about any expression of mixed feelings that you've heard them say in your conversations? So it might be that they've said, I really want to be in at 9 a.m, but honestly, by the time I've sorted the kids out in the morning, I feel like I've already done a day's work, and then the traffic's terrible, and that's why I'm not getting in till 9:15, but I'm really happy to work on afterwards. I know you say it's not the way to do it, but it's still the same amount of time I'm working. That would be an example of ambivalence, and I would just like you to write that down. So think about a work issue. So it might be that you work with clients or service users. So can you bring somebody to mind with an issue and identify their ambivalence? So an example might be that you're working with somebody who knows that they need to improve their parenting, and maybe that's because they have been reported for being quite aggressive, and so the situation is aggression in their parenting. The ambivalence, I want you to think about things they've said to you in your conversations. So maybe they've said something like, I know I lose my temper all the time, and I know if I keep doing this, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. I might even lose my kids, so I need to do something about it. But sometimes they just drive me mad and I just lose it. I just red mist. I don't think I can change that. It's part of who I am. So that would be the ambivalence. So can you write down a working example, either as a member of staff that you work with or as a service user that you've worked with? So that's your working example. And then the second part of page 5, I'd like you to think about something personal for you. Now it's really, really important that you choose something safe. So I'd like you to choose something really quite light that you feel ambivalent about. So it might be that you're thinking of recycling more, you really believe in the environment, you want to be more green in your lifestyle, but you just don't get round to cleaning out tins and yogurt pots. So that would be your ambivalence. It might be that you would like to lose weight and you regularly think about health eating, but you just don't get round to putting it into place long term. So something that you feel really okay thinking about and writing about. Please don't choose something massive like whether or not to stay in your marriage, or whether or not to leave the country, or whether or not to leave your job. Don't choose your most personal, intimate life issue. I really want you to be safe when you come up with these ideas. So choose something such as, could I go to bed earlier? Could I get up earlier? Could I spend less time on the screens? Could I drink more water? Think of an issue that's really straightforward. Could I do a bit more exercise? Could I drive within the speed limit in my car? Write down your issue. So again, you've got current situation, issue here, and then really think about what are your mixed feelings. So I might say to you, I'd like to be fitter. That's my issue. My mixed feelings are, I want more energy, I'm getting older, I'd like to feel better, I'd like to have more energy when I wake up in the morning. But I don't know, I felt a little bit flat with the pandemic time. I haven't prioritised exercise, and I really don't know if I can get into a proper programme. So you're writing down the issue and then you're writing down the ambivalence. Now you've got about half an hour to do this, so I'd really like you to think about a good, effective work issue that you can think about during the training, and then equally think about a personal issue that's safe and light that again you can think about during the training. And once you've written these down, at some point later on today or on Wednesday, we're going to look back at these, and you may be discussing them in pairs or in 3s or 4s. So they both, firstly the work issue needs to be non-identifiable, so keeping somebody anonymous, and secondly your personal example needs to be safe and light and something that you're really happy to share with somebody else. Okay, so that's the exercise for this section, and then you'll be coming back in to come onto the screen for the next activity at the time that I've said. And I will aim to send a message so that will come up to remind you to join back into the meeting.